Let's get briefed. We'll start today's show in the Middle East, where tensions are on the rise between Israel and the Iranian-backed Lebanese Hezbollah. We'll speak to senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, David Daoud, about that. Later, we'll examine the ongoing pro-Palestinian protests continuing across the U.S. with author and national correspondent for The Blaze, Julio Rosas. He'll give us insight into one of the more interesting and important aspects of these protests. Who exactly is funding the ongoing demonstrations? I mean, those matching tents and Hamas headbands and professionally produced signs, well, somebody has to pay for it all. But first, today's PDB's Situation Report Spotlight. I want to begin in the Middle East, where fighting between Israel and Hezbollah along Israel's northern border with Lebanon is rapidly escalating, raising fears, of course, that the situation could devolve into a wider regional war. Last Monday night, the Israeli military mounted a massive aerial strike on what is being described as a significant Hezbollah compound deep inside Lebanese territory in the Baalbek region. That's roughly 80 miles from the Israeli border. Officials said they hit a facility operated by Hezbollah's Unit 4400, which reportedly coordinates weapons deliveries for the Iranian-backed militant group. And that's according to a report from the Times of Israel. The strikes also targeted sites in southern Lebanon and a convoy of tankers entering Lebanon from Syria, reportedly killing 3 Hezbollah militants. Now, Syria is part of the route used by Iran to move weapons and other resources into Lebanon for Hezbollah. The operation came after Hezbollah fighters shot down an Israeli drone with a surface-to-air missile over South Lebanon. The group also launched explosive-laden drones at northern Israel on the same day. Hezbollah responded to the airstrikes last Tuesday by launching a barrage of 50 rockets at the Golan Heights. Israeli officials said they managed to shoot down several of the rockets, while the rest struck open areas with no reported injuries. Now, as the IDF and Hezbollah continue to trade blows, the U.S. continues to urge Israel to show restraint, warning against instigating a war on its northern frontier. As a reminder, these back-and-forth skirmishes along the northern Israeli border, they're not new. Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants began launching rockets into Israel's northern territory following the October 7 attacks and have been exchanging near-daily cross-border fire with Israel ever since. As we discussed last week on the PDB, tensions are significantly escalated between Israel and Hezbollah over the past 2 weeks, with both sides striking deeper into each other's territory. Hezbollah has increased their rate of rocket attacks, and they've begun using 1,000 to 2,000-pound warheads, causing extensive damage to Israeli military bases along that northern border. Amid the fighting, the Biden administration has been quietly pressuring Israel against launching a limited offensive or war against the militants, fearing that it could prompt Iran to intervene in the conflict. 2 U.S. officials who spoke anonymously to Axios said that in addition to the risk of Iranian involvement, they fear that militants from pro-Iranian proxy groups operating in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen would be eager to join the fight. Is there anywhere that Iran isn't running a proxy group these days? Last week, however, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel was prepared for large-scale operations along their border with Lebanon to subdue Hezbollah. Israel's war cabinet recently met to discuss the situation, with the IDF presenting several military options, including a ground invasion. Now, no decision has been made yet, and of course, what happens up north is largely dependent on the current ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas. U.S. officials indicated last week that the only path to a truce between Israel and Hezbollah was to secure a ceasefire deal in Gaza. Now, Hezbollah, for their part, well, they appear to be in no rush to de-escalate. They vowed to keep up the attacks until the fighting in Gaza ends. In a recent statement, Hezbollah's deputy chief claimed that while they're not seeking a wider conflict, quote, if Israel wants to fight an all-out war, well, we are ready for it, end quote. All right, when we come back, we'll have more on this with senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, David Daoud. We'll be right back.